Welcome to Finding the Front, brought to you by the proudly West Australian company, Euroz Hartleys. This is a podcast series where we take time out to get to know the story behind the people who front some of Western Australia's leading companies. We look back at some of the moments in their life and career that shaped the journey to being the leader they are today, and provide you with some real insights into the way they think and approach things, both in business and in life. So get the volume adjusted in your car or your headphones sorted and settle in for a great story. Here is your Finding the Front host, Tim Banfield.
Hey everyone, continuing on from part A of our interview with Richard Hyde, founder, CEO and executive chairman of West African Resources, we keep going on this seriously insightful journey of building a gold mine in West Africa. That brings us to starting WAF.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is really where this is where the journey begins in essence.
Yeah, so I'd been writing these independent geos reports and these companies have been getting listed and thinking, like, I'm sure I could go and peg some ground and we could do something. And I worked in most of the West African countries at that point. I had some really good contacts and some good experiences in Burkina.
Yeah.
So I'd been to Burkina in 2002 for a company called Volta, and this is the irony of what we've just done by acquiring Kiaka. So the irony of this is that in 2002 when I went to Burkina, it was to look at some projects for Volta Resources, and they'd been exploring in Ghana, and they picked up some ground in Burkina, and that's the same company that acquired the Kiaka project off Randgold and ended up being kind of taken out by B2 Gold in 2013.
Right.
And we've ended up with that project in 2021. So it's the irony is there, but backing up to sort of putting together a decent land package. So my idea back then was if we could peg, 2,000 square kilometres roughly, or about 50 to 100 kilometres of strike of greenstone belts, of new virgin greenstone belts, that we could, you'd find a deposit. Because I think if you look at most greenstone belts around the world, whether they're Proterozoic or Archean in Western Australia or in Africa or India or kind of anywhere, there are major deposits. Sort of, if you can get enough of the strike, you can find a deposit in 50 to 100 strike kilometres of greenstone generally. And we managed to get information, a lot of data on Burkina. So I got the regional geophysical data. I already had a lot of the regional geology data, and I sat down with a mate of mine, Mike Morowa, and we did some structural reviews and found a really nice target in central Burkina Faso. And the geology map said granite, the geophysics definitely looked like greenstone. We started doing I did some literature searches on that and pulled some information from the geo survey in Burkina, and sure enough there'd been exploration done on it previously. So we picked up one little license, we pegged about 6 or 7, put it together, and then I started sort of trying to market that for either a joint venture or backdooring into a company or an IPO.
Yeah.
And that was the next sort of, journey of learning how to, weave your way through without sort of losing your shirt in West Perth. And, because I think if you can do anything, if you can do a business in Western Australia or in West Perth, you can do it anywhere because, it's definitely entrepreneurial, but you learn pretty quickly. There's people who know a lot more about this sort of stuff than you do. So you better learn quick, So, and I must have had, so I'd quit my job with RSG, which wasn't great timing because I had a brand new baby, Hayley, who's now 15. My wife wasn't impressed.
So
and
just pause there. So you met your wife, Lexi, in Africa?
No, I met her at Rottnest.
At Rottnest, right.
Yeah, in 2001. So I'd gone across to Rotto with a mate of mine, Daryl Princey, and we'd been mates at rugby and we were sharing a house at the time. And so I'd come back and stay at his house on my breaks from Africa. Yes, we were both at Rotto for the Rotto swim because we had sort of friends who were doing it or paddling, and I met Lexi in the pub, and it was pretty good. We got on quite well, and then she left that night and told me to go and play in the crowd, and I kind of pestered her and kept in touch with her. Then I went back to Africa, and we kind of traded emails, and we kept in touch, and then that was pretty much it.
Oh, fantastic!
But it turned out that she worked in mining as well, so she'd been working for Placidome, been involved with the construction side of mining, which is a bit different.
Right.
So it turned out we're both in mining anyway.
So with that in mind, 2006 starts, you've left your job, you've pegged some land, you have got a new beautiful baby girl.
Mm-hmm.
It's game on.
Yes.
So if I can just pause just to give everyone a little bit of context here. So the way I've sort of looked at this timeline, 2006, the company's incorporated. 2010, West African Resources IPOs on the ASX. 2016, you make a discovery.
Mm-hmm.
You drill for another 2 years.
Yeah.
You run a financing process in 2018.
Yeah.
4 banks in a syndicate and Taurus.
Yes.
2019-20, you build a plant ahead of schedule.
Yeah.
You sign a mining convention with the government of Burkina Faso. You pour your first gold in March 20, ahead of schedule. Through this whole process, you partner with really high quality Australian contractors like Apodium, Parenti, Burncut and Ausdrill to get the job done. The headlines read now, West African Resources targets 400,000 ounces a year after buying Kiaka project from B2 Gold.
Yeah.
What a story.
Yep.
So if we go back in time, you've gone from junior to producer. It's a long way from pegging a little bit of land in Burkina Faso based on some research you did and to where you are now. Rich, if I can just sort of logical issues stand out, and I just can't wait to hear your responses. Starting out, people would have said, you can't raise the money to fund the project.
Correct.
You raise the funds.
Yeah.
Then they said, you can't get a team to build the project.
Yep.
You put together a quality team and you built the project.
Yep.
Then they said commissioning is where these things fall over. They wait until you commission and they invest. You commission very well. Then, to cap it off, you've achieved top end and looking to exceed your guidance in the first year of production.
Yep.
Accompanied by obtaining low all-in sustaining costs of less than US $800 an ounce.
Yeah.
And the company has a market capitalisation of in excess of $1 billion.
Yeah. A bit hard to believe, really, isn't
It is. And it's so, look, if we go back, you arrive over there, the exploration starts.
Yeah, I had no idea it'd end up like this. So I think sometimes if you know too much, you wouldn't do things. So I've also had the opportunity, been very lucky to get the opportunity to actually, I think, grow as a person and as a manager with the company. So I've done my own little MBA doing it, like back when I was working for RSG Global, learning all those things about, metallurgy and mining and underground mining, and I got a crash course in it, and we got to do it very quickly, which was really good. And then I guess the last 15 years, doesn't seem it's taken that long, but it kind of accelerates. And then once you've done something once, or you made a mistake and you kind of say to yourself, I'm never making that mistake again.
Yes.
It's a good way to learn, because I think we all make mistakes. It's a critical thing that we don't keep making the same mistakes. And that's the reason why, like even this deal for Kiaka went really quickly. I had a plan on how it should roll out. From all that experience from, raising, the toughest raise I ever did was $2.1 million. I think I've talked about this before. We had $1 million from Ausdrill, from Ron Sayers, on a handshake, and we raised the rest of it with Hartley's at the time. But, in reality, it was myself and the chairman at the time, Francis, and we hit up all the existing shareholders, and the deal was we had to get $1 million to match the $1 million from Ausdrill, and it was the hardest raise I've ever done. We got $2.1 million, and I said we were oversubscribed. Because we were just.
And so Ron really was a backer in the early days.
Yeah.
On the basis of a handshake, he backed you in.
Yeah, that's right. And we'd had, the deal was with Ron, he said, look, we'll give you $1 million if you spend $1 million on drilling. And I said, no problems, we'll do that. And, we had Ausdrill's rigs on site from 2016. We've got Parenti on site now doing the contract mining from the open pits and drill and blast. And, we've still got Ausdrill Parenti on site. At the same time, we've had very good relationships with Geodrill. So Dave Harper, who probably isn't so well known here in Australia, but he's an Australian guy who he went to Ghana for Stanley's back in the 90s and then set up his own company. It's listed in Canada, Geodrill. So we've had Geodrill on site for probably 8 years now.
On those drilling,
yeah.
But back when WAF started out, you set up or bought your own drill rigs, didn't you?
Well, we did to do the initial geochem work, because if you go back to when we listed in 2010, the market had kind of popped. And 2011, you couldn't get rigs in Africa. You couldn't get rigs in Burkina. So we'd built 3 auger rigs on the back of Land Cruisers, and that ended up being 3 auger rigs plus 2 air core rigs on the back of Land Cruisers, which ended up being 7 drill rigs in the end, with a couple of diamond rigs as well. And, the dark days really from 2012 to 2015, gold price was hit its lowest point. We raised that last $2.1 million in December 2015. The gold price was just holding above $1,000 an ounce. And we managed to do all that drilling with our own rigs and save a lot of money and keep the news flow going. So if you've gone through our announcements from 2013, 14 and 15, there was this regular news flow.
Yes.
WAF hits 15 metres at 2.5 grams a tonne, like to the point where the market has just got bored with it. But we had to keep putting news out there to try and keep interest in the stock, to try and keep the share price up so we could raise money. Because I knew it was going to work in some sort of form. Like even, the project we had it then, we would have done a small heap leach and it would have made money. But thankfully we made a discovery in end of 2015. We didn't really know it, but by early 2016, we realised that we were onto something special. We started getting some fantastic results, 20 metres at 50 grams, and this thing is being mined now. And I know that we don't bother releasing our grade control results, but I know the guys are getting like 5,000 grams per tonne on some of the grade control and some of the sampling underground. And we know that when it's running through the plant now, we'll have days where we're running well over an ounce, so 30 grams per tonne and out of the underground, and we're blending that with some of the low grade from the open pit. But we'll have days where we're doing 2,000 ounces a day on site. Quite amazing.
Amazing. When you first started drilling, just try and explain, what's that feeling like when you're in anticipation waiting to see if you've struck gold?
Yeah, it's exciting. Until recently I was still getting all of the assays from the lab to my personal email at work, and I'd still check them. And that's just the exploration geologist in me. I like to look and make sure things are going well and ask questions, always ask lots of questions. But when we first started getting results in 2016, I think we had a metre of 4 metres at 36 grams if you go back and look, and that was one of our composites. So we're doing 4 metre composites in RC drilling. And we went back and did the 1 metre splits, so you sample the 1 metre intervals, and I think there was a metre over 100, and then it repeated. And then we drilled more holes and we got the sort of similar results. And that's when we kind of knew that we were onto something special.
Absolutely fascinating. And so with regards to that, you firm up the resource, but then you decide, well, see, my sort of understanding with geology is that there's geologists who like to just stick to the knitting of exploration. They leave the manufacturing of plant, building the mills, etc., to someone else. You decided to say, right, well, we've got now the resource, we're going to go the next stage.
Yeah, we tried. So we actually did run a process in early 2018, and we had interest from some of the bigger groups out of North America, but it also coincided with the marijuana boom in Canada. So all of the speculative money was pulled out of the gold market at the time when we were trying to sell ourselves, and didn't work. So, I can remember sitting in a hotel room in Toronto. I'd gone on a marketing trip and had a call with the team that we were working with. At that time, we were working with Macquarie Bank here in Perth and out of Toronto to try and get a good bid for the company. And we just said, thanks, boys. It hasn't worked this time. I'm going to let everyone know that we're going to push on and build the project. And another ex-Macquarie Bank guy, Nick Harch and Brett Gossage, who I'd worked with previously at RSG Global, we used Nick and Brett to run the process for funding the project with debt finance. So I think, and that was sort of what you're saying before on one of the quotes. We had 4 banks in syndicate by the end of 2018, and we also had Taurus offering $200 million to build the project. And we signed the deal in the first week of December, and we made our first drawdown in the first week of April, so $75 million US. And
and why did you end up going with Taurus in the end versus the 4-bank syndicate?
The ability to deliver, really, because we'd studied it. We'd sat down with Nick, Brett, and also John Fitzgerald, who used to be on the Northern Star board. So that's our advisory group that we used, Arimco, and with the board at the time and the exec team, and we thrashed it out and we looked at all the potential angles and possibilities and I guess benefits and disadvantages of each offer. And when it comes down to it, you need the money. So being able to get $200 million from one group was going to be, there was more certainty on that than getting maybe $170 or $180 million from 4 banks, because you're dealing with 4 different credit departments and 4 different environmental departments. And
yes, keeps things simpler.
Simple is my sort of my approach in life. Yes, definitely.
Okay, so with that done, you're ahead of schedule, it gets built, and you pour your first gold in March 2020.
Yeah, in
That
a
must have
pandemic.
been in a pandemic, but you must have been extremely proud.
Yeah. So I'd say probably second best moment, maybe I'll be in trouble with Lexi, but third maybe, getting married, having a baby, pouring a bar of gold was pretty exciting.
I've seen the photos, Rich. You can't wipe the smile off the face.
No, it was an amazing moment in my life, and I guess the culmination of all those years of anxiety and anticipation and sort of hard work and self-doubt. Though you might not believe it, I'm very self-critical, and probably something that helps drive me as well.
Well, from my observations, you're a very fair and approachable person, which has clearly been able to manage a lot of people to get to the level you're at, and you've been able to do it in a way that they look up to you and follow you as a leader, which when you're managing now 1,300 people, and it's sort of, I think, the mark of the person that you've become, or the incentive or the motivation that you've had to build the business the way you have, is probably best looked at in the way you're looking to give back to the community and the region.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you read deeply into the way you present, but also the presentations that you provide, there's a lot devoted to that side of it.
Yeah.
And I just sort of, a couple of statistics that, in terms of giving back to the region, I know you had to engage with the local community before you could embark on the projects that you wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
But in doing so, you've been able to give them, through your success, some real opportunity. Social, economical, new homes, cattle yards, schools, health programs for meningitis, malaria. There's a big difference between exploration and being a successful money-making venture.
Yeah.
Maybe you could just give us a little bit of an insight into what really drives you in this area and the relationships you've got. I noticed of your workforce, you've got 90% from Burkina Faso.
Yeah, so it's something that's very hard to do as an exploration company. So the effect or the impact you can have really is, you're taking mostly young guys and sometimes girls out of the local villages and training them to be technicians, training them to, in the same sort of process that we were talking about in Western Australia doing exploration. But it's very hard to be, to kind of commit and have something that's long-standing because, exploration, it's like going to the casino, you try and stack things in your favour so you find something, but if you don't find something, then you leave an experience. Those people have had a job and they've learned how to, find gold, hopefully, or keep records and maintain vehicles and those sorts of things. But when you get into mining, you finally got longevity, so you can actually give back. Like I have talked about it, and it's because I have had a long experience in Africa as well, and it's a shame seeing what's happened in Burkina and Mali in the last 20 years since I've been working there. I can remember driving through, Ghana, Burkina, Mali, Senegal, into Sierra Leone and flying home again, and also into Guinea as well, doing a drive through all those countries in 2005. And, you just wouldn't think about doing it now, unfortunately, because it's not safe. But the people who are there haven't done anything wrong. Like, it's not their fault that there's, so much unrest in the northern part of Burkina, southern part of Mali. And often I get the question from investors, how do we manage that and why are we there? Are we looking at going to other countries? Well, we obviously do look at projects in other countries, but we've been given the opportunity in Burkina again with Kiaka, and it's a country that needs investment. And so quite often I would say, think about, before you hand your money over in that supermarket to one of the NGOs who might lose, 70% of your money in administration, like only 30% of it might get into the people who need it. So if you buy shares in WAF, you can look at our admin costs. They're probably lowest in the industry for our company. And I was going to say $4 million a year. It's probably a bit more than that these days, but it used to be pretty low.
Yes. So
that the bulk of what we are doing is getting back and making a difference in people's lives now. And I try not to get caught up too much in the virtue signalling because I just think if you keep doing a good job, the outcomes will kind of reflect well on us as people in the company. And also, we've got people who have backed us as shareholders from 2010 and before even really. and they can be proud as well.
Yes. I know that in the commercial metrics, you've got a 1% community dividend.
That's right. So that's in the new mining code in Burkina. So 2015, they brought a new mining code in. So we pay 27.5% corporate tax. There's a 1% dividend. It's 1% of revenue goes to the local community. There's we pay 5% royalties, and when you actually, and then the government also has a 10% free carried interest. So you kind of got to add all those things together to kind of work out that about 50% of the revenue of the project goes back to the local stakeholders and the government. So it's a pretty fair outcome. We hope it stays that way in Burkina, because there's always pressure from governments to get more. And I guess with the gold price going higher, there'll be pressure on that in the future. But certainly for our project, we're under the 2015 mining code, which kind of is life of project for us. So we've got stable terms for the period of the project, but they may look at new projects that are coming in. So if you're exploring in other parts of the country and something else is found, if they update the mining code, then that'll affect future projects.
Yes.
That's kind of how it works.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now that the acquisition's just happened with Kiaka,
Yeah.
really exciting. Just raised, 126 million.
Yep.
Onwards and upwards. If you look forward, if we could just sort of observe without having to go into too much detail, but how's it looking going forward now that you've got that production facility, you've got Kiaka coming on? How's it look going forward, Rich, for you?
Oh, look, it's getting back into our comfort zone again. So as a group, we really like doing studies, and then trying to get my personal sort of enjoyment comes from trying to get the best out of assets. So B2, we're looking at Kiaka as a 12 million tonne per annum operation, which is big, and it'll be too big for us. I think we'll be looking at it 7 or 8 million tonnes per annum. We want to go as big as we can on the mills and keep it simple. So use equipment that's been used before in Africa. And what that will do, it'll probably generate a project which is more than 15 years of mine life and higher than 220,000 ounces production per annum. So that's from the internal work that we did when we were doing our due diligence. But we'll keep working on that internally and working on the feasibility study, and we'll have reserves out early next year on Kiaka. But I can see us being 400 to 500,000 ounce a year production on 2 assets now. We kind of include Toega in Sanbrado. It's the same asset.
Yes.
Toega's just a satellite pit from 14 kilometres from Sanbrado. So Sanbrado's going to be long life, 200,000 ounce a year production. We're now debt free. We're unhedged. We're going back in a study. We'll have lots of news flow early next year on the new project. It's pretty unique. We're in a very sort of good position in Burkina. We're central and southern. 2 assets are within 45 kilometres of each other. We've got a very experienced workforce now, and like you said, 90% local Burkinabe workforce, and we've got about 10% expats. And of that 10% expats, we've got people from expats from within Africa. So Guinea, Kenya, Tanzania, Ghana. We've got international expats, I suppose, out of Africa expats. So
yes.
North America, so US from Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, France. We've hired a guy out of Suriname recently. So, it's quite amazing when you kind of have the opportunity to hire out globally as well. And the quality of some of the people and the skill set they've got is so different. And not only are can they be competent in their profession, but when you start working overseas, you meet these really clever people who can speak not just 2 languages, they might speak 3 or 4 or 5. Now, we've got people in our company now who can speak 4 or 5 languages fluently.
Wow.
Half of our office in Perth is pretty much French speaking.
Yes.
Bilingual, except for me and Lyndon. No, my French gets better the more beer I drink. But just can't do that during the daytime when I'm talking to ministers.
How exciting.
Yeah, it is really exciting. So I can see that's our next stage. We're going to focus on Kiaka now. We've done a great deal. We've been working with B2 on that for 4 or 5 months. It's a big asset, Kiaka. It's got potential for more than that. Like B2, we're looking at plus 300,000 ounce production per annum. We've just got to try and size it right for us, and then there might be opportunity in the future to scale it up even further.
Rich, I can just tell you're so proud of your team and the company that you've built, and you can just tell you're so excited too. Yeah. It's like you're opening your Christmas presents.
It's just I feel very fortunate. I've been a pretty lucky sort of person, I think, all my life.
But I mean, the old adage, I think Gary Player said, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah, that's true.
It hasn't come easy.
No, not at all. And so I think when you have to work for something, you appreciate it. And we certainly appreciate these opportunities. We hope, obviously we won the Cake Award this year at Hartley's.
Yes.
So the lowest cost producer on the ASX. And I think some of that's still sinking into investors as well, that you can actually do all this in Africa. Like we've proven that, we can develop a project there and also get money back out of the project, because you speak to what some investors say, well, you only put money into Africa. Well, that's not true, because we've proven through the work we've done in the last 18 months, we rapidly got money up and out of Africa and paid back tourists. I think we had tourists sort of half paid back before we did the capital raising to fund Kiaka and also to pay tourists back. So we've proven that it can work. Africa does work.
Yes.
The second best producer on the ASX is Perseus, and they're in Ghana and the Ivory Coast. You see the sort of prices of assets that are being sort of dealt at the moment in Western Australia, and they're at the top end. There's not a lot of money being made on these assets in Western Australia, really, in comparison to Africa, and that's the opportunity, because like we were saying at the start, Africa is still a new sort of destination really for exploration. So a lot of these modern methods that are being applied here in Western Australia haven't been applied there yet.
Well, I've got a couple of rapid fire sort of questions for you, just to round it out. It has been a truly amazing journey, and we, as I say, we're really grateful for you to take the time out to have a chat with us. I just want to come from some of the listeners will look at gold companies, and what should they look for when they're looking to invest in a gold company, when they're doing their due diligence, they're doing their research? What are some of the things when you compare? I mean, you've highlighted with WAF the benefits and the advantages. What should they look for?
I'm an exploration geologist, so I look at ore body geometry and sort of the style of mineralisation. So you want deposits that can lend themselves to conventional mining techniques. So that's one thing that investors should look for. I think with the gold price getting higher, you're going to see more refractory projects coming to market. But I think keeping things simple is important. So look for conventional milling and recovery methods. So certainly for development projects, and if you're looking at companies that have got multiple assets, you want big sort of simple sort of free milling assets if you can get them. You need experienced management, and certainly we've managed to pull together a pretty exceptional team.
Yes.
Over the last sort of years.
Yeah.
But it takes time, but it's obviously accelerated in recent years. So that's important. And then, if you're looking at operations, you've got to go and have a look at how much free cash they're generating. I mean, that's what Euroz Hartleys have done with corporate all-in costs.
Yes. Which
is important, because some of these older assets in Western Australia, they might have good-looking all-in sustaining costs, but when you add in growth capital or sort of additional sustaining capital or capital that's required to expand an operation, or to access a new deposit, they often end up making not a lot of money. And ultimately, if you want to do all the good things that I think mining does do, and I think we don't talk enough about it, so social programs, restoring land back to levels that are better than when we started with it. That's one thing we focus on at WAF.
Yes.
You need to make money on it. Otherwise you're just making money for contractors and for the government paying taxes and employees. So to generate free cash to pay dividends or to create cash so you can grow the company,
yes,
that's really important. So that's what I'll be looking for.
Okay, thanks for that. That's really good guidance. Next one would be, if I was a graduate looking to get into geology, what would you say?
Definitely do it, because we're not getting enough graduates across the industry. So whether it's geology or mining engineering, metallurgy, surveying, any of the key disciplines involved in mining. I think if you look at not just gold, but if you look at some of these other industries where, if we're going to go to this green economy where we're going to be driving electric cars, then
yes,
the amount of copper that's got to go into an electric car is phenomenal, and which means we've got to go and find more copper deposits and mine them and process them. The same thing with lithium. I think lithium it'll taper out because it's a very common element. It's in a supply squeeze at the moment, but lithium as well is, to fill the void in the economy at the moment, we're going to need more people in mining and exploration, and so we need more graduates. I'm encouraging my daughter to perhaps look at metallurgy, because I think she's good at maths and chemistry.
Yes.
Her chemistry level already is probably better than mine. I did get through second year chemistry somehow at university.
Rich, we won't hold you to this one, but what's your view on the gold price going forward?
Look, I think gold is going higher. I think it's going to go to many $1,000s per ounce, because they're not making more of it. You've got to go and find more of it, and you can't make it. So I'm not a believer in crypto. If you believe in catastrophism, if the biggest sort of things that we're going to deal with in the future are, if it's climate change, then we're lucky, because I don't think it's climate change. I think, if we have global cooling, so if you read A Short History of Nearly Everything by Bill Bryson, it kind of puts things in perspective. If we have cold winters where we can't grow crops, then people starve. You don't have that with global warming. You're going to have more areas that open up for cropping. So historically in Earth's history, I'm not giving you a very short answer here, but Earth's history, periods of warming, we've actually had economic boom and booms in human development and growth. So look, my fear is that we have some sort of turmoil in the future, and that's why I think people need some gold in their investment portfolio. Can you imagine a situation where the governments aren't in control of the internet anymore, or some international players hack the internet, and how do you get your crypto off the website because you got to start a generator because you got no grid power? These are sort of things that could happen. It happens in other countries, where you have brown outages, your power being shut down. So if you're relying on $1 million on a thumb drive, then I think you got problems. So I believe that gold it's a good investment. I think investors should have some gold in their portfolio, whether it's physical gold, investing in gold stocks or gold producers. I have physical gold as well, I believe. I bought the first bar of gold out of Zambrano, and I'll buy the first bar of gold out of Kiaka as well. So, I paid for it. And I just, when you read stories about the SAS being dropped into Afghanistan in the first Gulf War, they had gold sovereigns sewed into their uniforms. They weren't going in with a thumb drive, because what are you going to do with that? Anyway, that's my view on it. I just think it's fanciful where something's been created and then has become a scarce commodity. Doesn't make sense to me. Whether you believe in God or the universe or whatever, gold is already scarce. It's had thousands of years to kind of get used to it as a commodity or as a currency, and it's amazing. Anyone who's a skeptic on gold, if you hand them a gold bar that's 20 kilos and it's the size of a house brick, you convert them very quickly. It's a pretty amazing
thing. They get a feel
thing.
for it.
Oh, for sure. It's amazing. And the first gold bar I bought out of Zambrano, and my daughter sort of looked at it and her eyes were kind of
nearly fell out of her head.
Fell out of her head. And Dad, how much is that worth? No, it's amazing. So gold is great. It's something that in my career as a geologist, it's gone from about $400 an ounce down to $250 an ounce. It's been up to $2,000 an ounce, and now it's sort of almost back at $2,000 an ounce now. So I know by the time I retire, it's going to be at least double where it is now. So you want to have some of it.
Hey, Rich, I just want to finish by when we caught up prior to this, one of the quotes I wrote down, I remember have you gone through your career, particularly with WAF, you're saying you had to be a jack of all trades, an exploration geologist, you had to be able to manage geopolitical risk, you had to be a travel agent, you had to be a master in tropical medicine, you had to be independent, and you had to be resourceful. I think, it's not a bad way to finish that you've ticked all those boxes and you've been able to generate what is a truly fantastic story. And well done, congratulations. But I say that knowing that there's still a big journey to go and you're completely up for the task.
Yeah, like I did say, master of none, so I can do a bit of all of those. I don't know if I do it well. Yeah, look, we're really keen to kind of go on the next journey, and I think it'd be a shame for us not to reapply what we've learned, because it is a huge learning experience taking a project through from discovery through project finance, all the different studies and actually building it and making it work, and then not to do it again if we've been given the opportunity, and we have. So I think we'll make a really good fist of Kiaka. It's going to be a different project. It's going to be bigger and longer life, and the gold price is high. It'll be a great project, and it's a good addition to Zambrano. Long live WAF at plus 400,000 ounces per annum.
Good on you, Rich.
Yes.
Hey, thanks again, mate. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
It's been a real privilege. Thanks a lot.
Pleasure being here. Thanks, Tim.
Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Finding the Front, brought to you by the proudly West Australian wealth management and diversified financial services company, Euroz Hartleys. If you like what you heard, please don't hesitate to tell your friends and subscribe to the podcast through your podcast host of choice. If you have any questions or would like to contact us, please email our fabulous producer Bridget on communications@eurozhartleys.com or visit our website at www.eurozhartleys.com. This podcast has been general information only. Euroz Hartleys holds Australian Financial Services Licence 230052.